I got you.
All right, creatures of the night, welcome to Talking Taker, episode 150 of our encyclopedic exploration, digging up the career of the greatest professional wrestling character of all time, The Undertaker. My name is Alex Doriot. I want to thank you for joining us for yet another very special round of Dead Man Talking tonight. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host, by my tag team partner, by my wrestling buddy. He is the only man that I want to take this last ride with, Mr. Travis White. And Travis, oh man, after 150 episodes of this podcast now, after probably about 500 hours or so of talking about The Undertaker, and double that, triple that, quadruple that of watching Undertaker matches and doing the research and all of that stuff. After all of that, after the last ride, episode number 5 this past Sunday, I think I'm finally speechless. I'm at a loss for words. I don't even know what to say.
I know, man. It was, it's been a long time coming for this, and Speechless was a great way. I mean, emotional ending to the series. Great series. We're going to break it down here. Almost feels like we could just end right here at 150 because with this last ride, we're like, we got 10 more years to cover, So it's kind of weird, but it's emotional, and Speechless is great. And as we'll see in some of the Talking Head interviews and in it, these guys were kind of speechless too.
So as we talked about, we've said it many times on the show, and we'll talk about it more as we go on. We started this podcast 3 years ago now. Coming up this August will be the 3-year anniversary of us starting this show, thinking that The Undertaker's career was over, and then we went on and did it for 7 or 8 months. With that being our mindset, The Undertaker surprised us coming out of retirement and adding about 8 or 9 or so matches to that ever-expanding Excel spreadsheet of matches that you made up for us, Travis, for us to go by here on this podcast. But now, out of nowhere, let's not bury the lead. The Undertaker essentially retired. Said he no longer desired to go back in the ring. Said he was hanging up his 6-shooter this past Sunday on the last ride, episode 5. Something, not totally unexpected, but still, I mean, it was crazy to hear him finally say it in this way. Of course, with a little caveat, saying,
sure,
never say never, which is kind of the story of this whole series, The Last Ride.
Yeah, exactly.
But wow, man, it's we decided to cover this whole series because we knew the finale would be a big deal, whether or not he actually retired or not.
Yeah.
But man, like you said, it almost feels like we could end things right here. It's just like,
yeah.
Of course, it'll be great going forward and doing the rest of his career after this. But wow, man, I mean, yeah, I'm speechless.
I'm interested to hear and see our takes on the rest of his career, the next 10 years. Now that we know it's done, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I wonder if it's going to change the way we look and appreciate things. I was thinking about that kind of just subconsciously the other day, and I wonder how this is going to change, or if it's going to matter at all, or factor into the way we look at things. So, anyway, maybe we won't rip on him too much anymore when stuff sucks. I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll try to be honest, though.
I think it will color the rest of this podcast a little bit differently. We've got about I don't know, something like 30 or so episodes left. We should finish up around February or so of 2021. Finally, if things go according to plan, we're in the year 2009 right now. We're taking a break. Like we said, a little detour. We're going to dedicate this entire episode to all 5 episodes of the Last Ride series. We're not going to break it down, second by second, kind of like we do Undertaker's matches. We're just going to talk about each episode, some of the standout moments. We've recapped each episode as they've come along, but we want to go a little bit more in depth in them, and just, we're going to try to feel it out. We don't know exactly how it's going to go. Just try to have a conversation about it, and hope you guys
and call in the ring.
We'll call it in the ring, just like the Undertaker
Exactly.
would, man. But what a special series this has been. We'll talk about it more once we get to the end of it. But I think you've said, Travis, this is the best thing the WWE Network has ever produced in 6 years now.
Without question. I don't know what else could possibly overtake this. No pun intended. But I mean, just honestly, because nobody's character is like this, and there's no more. No one has a history untold like this guy. So this is best thing I've ever done. I thought maybe that FCW documentary was it, or the Edge coming backstory was it, but this one takes the cake, and just runs with it. If you want, who runs with cake, but this takes the cake and runs with it. I usually eat the cake, but this takes and runs with it.
You think about just how far WWE behind the scenes documentaries have come too. Remember getting those DVDs back in year 2000, and it was always the same talking heads of Bruce Pritchard and Eric Bischoff, the same interview that they used for 10 years, in front of just a blue background or something. It was always the same clips, and they were good. I mean, I watched them over and over again. I watched every one of them. They're all entertaining, but this, man, peeling back the layers, showing us the reality of someone that we've never seen this side of, too. That's what makes this so special.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't think of anybody on the current roster that would even compare to this. The closest you would possibly get would be Bray Wyatt, but he posts pictures on Instagram of his child, so already, and he's not been in the business for 30 years. So Taker just started doing that a year or two ago. So, yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. And, I think I was trying to think of other guys you could do this on, and there's nobody that compares to Undertaker. I do have a couple ideas for maybe potential sequels or other series that could be close to this. But we'll talk about that towards the end. I've got some things I'll run by you. But, man, let's just start it off. Let's talk about episode 1 of this 5-part limited series on the WWE Network. If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't watched this whole series yet, I mean, I just don't believe that's possible. I don't believe anyone listening to this podcast has not listened to this, not watched this series. But obviously, go watch all this stuff before you listen to this. You and I both rewatched the whole series before we did this, so we re-binged it to take notes on it. This one is called Chapter 1, The Greatest Fear, and it's basically going to cover, sort of going to give a recap of The Undertaker's, just the baseline of his entire career before setting up and focusing on 3 days, the final 3 days in the match at WrestleMania 33, which jump-started the idea for this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And, I just wrote in my notes that if I could sum this episode up into 2 words, it'd be dedicated and vulnerable. And honestly, not just this episode, this entire series is basically that. That's what you see from the beginning to the end. He is dedicated and he is vulnerable. And a quote he kind of says in the beginning of this is, I want them thinking that, this guy's got a lot left in the tank, If I can leave with that, I'll be content. I can walk away. And he says, I've been saying that for a long time. And that's kind of repeated throughout the series as the years go by. So it's kind of funny that he's aware that he doesn't want to be a parody of himself, but he keeps not having the ending that he wants. So he keeps coming back to not be a parody of himself. So anyway.
Yeah, it's the real life struggle. And it's something we've talked about on the show the past few weeks with the Shawn Michaels matches and the CM Punk matches, how those matches... Well, the Shawn Michaels match was special because it pulled in so much reality of those characters, and the CM Punk feud maybe didn't do that quite as much. It was more focused on this, pretend storyline, this extra stuff that they kept adding in there with Teddy Long and everything. But that's what makes this show so great. Obviously, it's a reality show, but I mean, we're seeing that real struggle in not just The Undertaker, but in the man, Mark Calaway. I think we covered. This was during the Biker Taker era. He did that off the record show with whatever that tool's name is.
Canadian guy.
Yeah. I think he said that exact quote. Like, I don't want to be a parody of myself. I don't want some dad taking their kids to see me and saying, "Oh, you should have seen that Undertaker guy back then." Yeah. So this has been on his mind for years.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy, man. And again, right from the get-go of this episode, we find out that, I mean, one of the things that blew me away was that he contacted Vince 3 days before WrestleMania 33 and, wanted the cameras to document him. So it's just really interesting to hear that he made the call. He's the one that had to make the call because, as he's going to mention later on, he's passed up opportunities after opportunities for things outside of the business. But he was so dedicated, like I said, that he wanted to protect his character. So he's finally choosing, I think this is my last match at WrestleMania 33. I want to document this for my family, basically, because if you hear podcasts since then, he's talked about he was just going to have this as a home video for his whole family. Never really intended to release it or anything. Just supposed to be documenting his last few days for his kids, basically, or his daughter. So
he obviously didn't know it'd become this epic miniseries, basically. Yeah. He clearly thought this was going to be the end. This was the last week in his career, and he was trying to take it all in. I mean, you can see him as he gets off the plane at the beginning of this episode. You can see the wear and tear on his body, man, in these early episodes. You can see the limp is just extremely pronounced. I'm not trying to be mean or rude, but he's overweight. He's not.
He's big.
He's big. He's heavier than he's been in a long time, and he just looks to be in pain as he walks around this WrestleMania weekend.
He really does, man. And I remember you and I were. This is the last Mania we got to watch together, wasn't it? And we'll cover that when we get there. But yeah, we were on my couch in my house, and I think we both kind of admitted that too. Like, he's looking a little rough out there, like big, just kind of big. If this is his last match, he's looking a little bit for it, but and it's just really cool. Like they kind of, I think when they're here is when he's talking backstage to Cornette and Jimmy Hart, and he's like, they can call me Santa Claus now because I only come out once a year, and I just thought that was great.
That's perfect.
This is pretty funny. Yeah.
Probably the last time we'll ever see Jim Cornette on the WWE Network. Seems like at this point in time. But enjoyed seeing him there.
Rest in peace, Cornette.
Love the interaction with Roman Reigns at this check-in area for the WrestleMania hotel as Taker's checking in and Roman Reigns just sidles up next to him to check in, and Taker's like,
"Really? You really can't kayfabe 10 minutes? Wow, screw your camera."
Oh, it was great, man. But even then, Taker's kind of joking, but I think he's kind of serious.
He's kind of serious.
Even if that camera following him, he's kind of serious too. Like, come on, man. Like, this is supposed to be protected. But anyway, again, he's dedicated, like I said.
Well, that's why this show is so effective, because there's never been a guy for this long, for 30 years, even long past kayfabe being dead and, everybody, the internet and smart marks and everybody being in on things. No one has ever maintained his character like The Undertaker has. And we see that. They kind of show in the early part of this episode, seeing the early days of his career from his debut and all these legends talking about him. You got Mick Foley, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Shane McMahon, Stone Cold. They're all putting over this, the icon that is The Undertaker.
Yeah, and one cool thing that Shane in particular says is, he says,
people fell in love with the character. They also fell in love with Mark Calaway because they know he works so hard for them.
And I just wrote in my notes, this is one of the best and truest statements in this entire series. And it's something that I think you and I both would admit that it's happened to us over the experience of talking Taker, as this project. We both admitted from episode 1, he wasn't our favorite wrestler. We loved the character. We were always intrigued by him. He was always had cool stuff going on, but he wasn't something that was, we have to tune in and collected all of his memorabilia and stuff. I mean, he was definitely iconic, but I've grown to love, and I think meeting him a few months ago had something to do with it too, but I've grown to fall in love with Mark Calaway because I appreciate, as we break down all this stuff under a microscope and with a fine-tooth comb, I see the dedication and the nuance. Like I always talk about the nuances, the little things. Seeing them as we've covered his entire career, like it's made me fall in love with the man. Like from a platonic standpoint, but like Shane saying that was very. It just stood out to me, and you can see all these guys that you just mentioned. They they hold him in such high regards.
Absolutely. When you have watched everything he's done in his entire career in this condensed way that we have, you appreciate his dedication, his work ethic, all the little things that he does so much more than I ever had before. So yeah, he's become without a doubt my favorite wrestler over the course of doing this podcast, even though he was not. I loved him and I respected him, but I never appreciated him and put him at the top of the list like I do now. So we see we talk about the importance of WrestleMania throughout this episode. A lot of guys that have been part of this streak, like Batista and Edge and Triple H, kind of put that over. We see some clips from WrestleMania 27, but I don't see our buddy Josh's shirt in the crowd, so not from the right angle. But we'll talk about that in a few weeks when we get to that episode.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see Josh's big green shirt there either, but
I was looking for
he
it.
talks about. I was, man, me too. Batista and Edge in particular talk about their opportunity they got versus Streak, and you can tell how humble they are and how much respect they have for this guy. Both of them are featured prominently to this entire series, and you can it oozes off of both of them how much they love this guy and how much they respect him and honored they are to have shared the ring with him. But Taker says, the streak is what made it okay for me to only work once a year. I had to defend the streak, and he says his schedule was basically I get ready for Mania, I have a Mania match, I have surgery after Mania, I rehab, I get ready for the next WrestleMania. And like, what a freaking guy! Like, even if you're working one time a year, it's because after you're done working, you're getting surgery. You're rehabbing for the next year. Like, he's not just out fishing and like playing and like just blowing his money. He's rehabbing for the next year. Just what a guy, man. Again, dedicated.
Yeah, he talks. I think it's this episode. He talks about how it's almost harder to do it that way to only work one match a year because of how important it is to just basically be in ring shape. We've heard a lot of wrestlers talk about that, how it's a different kind of shape, how you got to be used to taking bumps and get into that sort of style. And there's no way to replicate that besides being in the ring. And so having to get up for that high and then totally get away from it and then try to work yourself up for that, it's almost more exhausting to just only work that one match a year.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's unfortunately what leads to problems at WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of that, leads to WrestleMania 30, which, we'll talk about and break down more later on, but he talks about, that his last memory that day was at 3:30 in the afternoon. That's it. And so that's he doesn't know where stuff went wrong. He doesn't blame Brock either, but he can't pinpoint where stuff happened. But we meet Larry Heck, who's going to feature into this. He's the athletic trainer. But we meet Larry Heck, who's going to feature into this show, and he's talking about how after the match, Taker was just gone. He was just sitting there, like, and his eyes were just glazed over, and he was there, he wasn't. The lights were on, but nobody was home. And the one thing that stood out probably the most to me in this whole entire episode was that Vince coming to Gorilla and basically yelling at people like, "I need some help here," and then he goes to the ER with him while WrestleMania 30 is happening.
As we pull into the hospital, Carlos behind us was an SUV.
Doors open. Of course, the first person who's there. WrestleMania's still going on, but who's outside the ambulance? Vince. Vince and Brock. And of course, Mark cusses Vince. Don't you have a show, that's still going on? But Vince wouldn't have it.
And we're sitting there in a room, and he kind of looks up at us and he goes, "I'm not dead, guys. Come on." And so it kind of made the room laugh a little bit, so we were able to start joking around.
I mean, the chairman and then your biggest star both get out and go to the ER with him while WrestleMania 30 is happening. Like, that is unheard of, man. It's unheard of.
I mean, it's the biggest WrestleMania ever. That's the first one on the network. That's them launching this most important innovation in the company's history. And Vince leaves. He misses the second half of the show. He misses the main event to go be with Undertaker. So that's a little foreshadowing of one of the important storylines of this series is going to be that Undertaker, Vince McMahon, or Mark Calaway, Vince McMahon relationship that we're going to see so many really special, incredible moments and such great conversation about. It's going to be one of the highlights of the series for me. But I mean, yeah, that is just unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it blew me away, man. And then Taker admits later on, like, you know, that he says that one concussion in one match destroyed my confidence. And so
I could see
we
that.
see him
I mean,
then. Absolutely. Absolutely, you know, and we see him at WrestleMania 31 kneeling in the mirror. And again, we'll get to all this stuff in depth later, but you can see him when he's kneeling in that mirror and the camera catches him. Like, he's a little shaken, you know, not really ready like he is when Triple H comes over and basically drops a few bombs on him and says, show him who the heck you are, you know?
It was Triple H that really spotted it. And I'm waiting to go out, just riddled with self-doubt. And Triple H came to me, and, you know, he's just like, hey, remember who the f*** you are. Show them who the f*** you are. Last year, killed his name.
Triple H even admits, like, you know, it's hard for me to even contemplate that this guy felt that way. He said he's the freaking Undertaker, except he uses a different word, but he's like, this is the guy who's unshakable. You know, seeing him shaken a year later is just out of control, man. It's unheard of.
That's what another thing that makes this series so special is to see this guy. You know, it was just this picture of manliness, of intimidation, of fear. Just this icon that we've all seen on our TVs for 30 years. He's a human being. You know, I see myself in him. Like, I've been in that situation, you know, and that was one of the cool things about meeting him, even if it was only for 30 seconds. Like, we were so intimidated and afraid of him, but he's just a guy. He just, you know, he said hey to us, shook our hand, kind of cracked a joke with us. He laughed at us when we walked away. It was just like, oh, he's just a guy. Like, you know, he's a really cool guy, and a really normal guy. And to see these fears and inadequacies, it humanizes him so much, and it just makes you appreciate him and his sacrifices so much. And I love that about the Hall of Fame footage that we get during this episode. One of my favorite parts of it, because, you know, we always hear those stories about Undertaker not being at the Hall of Fame. He never sits in the crowd at the Hall of Fame. They never show him on TV because, again, he's committed to that character. He doesn't want to be out there, and it wouldn't look right if he was out there in a tux sitting in the crowd. But it's cool to see him getting to enjoy it backstage and hang out with Kurt Angle and DX and Teddy Long and all these guys.
Yeah, seeing Teddy was great, man. It was a great little cameo. Was that the year that he was in?
It must have been, yeah.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, I think
must have been, yeah. But seeing them just brought great memories back of the stuff we've been covering the last, you know, couple months here. But I like the, you know, he walks in, he's like, was this an old timers convention? And who's there? Like Jericho and Christian and Edge and all them. So they're all there. So it's great. And then Sean's like, oh yeah, we're just waiting for the chairman to walk in or whatever. You're like, So that was great.
We get some good business with Taker and Kurt Angle too, and some cool 2001-ish era behind the scenes footage of those guys too. Yeah, they're sitting there, you know, on the couch or something, talking and joking back and forth. And what does he say? Something like, I think you'll have a future in this business, or something like that. Or something like that. Yeah, to Angle, which is just funny. So obviously that's the night before WrestleMania, or 2 nights before. I can't remember what night NXT was back then. But anyway, WrestleMania weekend. So Undertaker's taking that in, enjoying that. But we see a little bit of behind-the-scenes footage of Undertaker and Roman talking as well this night before WrestleMania, and some cool rehearsal footage from the night before Mania of the Undertaker getting his entrance just right and his street clothes and everything. And again, you can just see that the pain that he's in.
Yeah, he looks rough, man.
And he has a great quote as he says,
I'm either going to go out with a match that's befitting the Undertaker at WrestleMania, or I'm going out on my shield one way or another.
Yeah, and that's the story of the rest of this series, basically. Honestly, because this was supposed to be it. This was supposed to be it right here. As far as he knew, this was it, and so he's thinking that that's going to be it. But it's not. And one quote he has, I don't remember the context. I think he's talking about himself and just like about the business in and of itself. It's like, this business, you got 3 rules. It's don't embarrass yourself, don't embarrass the company, and don't embarrass Vince. And especially nowadays with what's going on in the wrestling business, we're seeing guys embarrass themselves and embarrass the company and embarrassing Vince and stuff like that, and or even in other companies, AEW or whatnot. But like Taker, dude, he doesn't have skeletons in his closet that you're going to hear dig up the dirt sheets and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like even Austin had stuff. Flair's got plenty of it. Hogan, like the big guys. The Rock is pretty solid, but Taker and like Kane, I mean, seriously, Foley, like there's just a couple of guys, I mean, that you can't really say. I mean, Sean's former life before he came back was a wreck,
Right.
So it's just, I don't know. It's just really, it's some words I wish the younger guys would live by too. Don't embarrass yourself with company or Vince. So.
Yeah, you see just how important that is to him, how he lives by that motto, and you see it as we get this great footage of him in the training room getting, I assume it's cortisone or cortisol, some sort of injection, so he can go out and compete tonight. His body's broken down. They showed footage of the Royal Rumble that he was in a couple months before this, and how he basically said, I knew that night I didn't have any business being at WrestleMania. Like, I knew I didn't have it anymore, but he'd already committed to it. They'd already started it, so he wasn't going to back out of it. But he's doing everything he can to go out there. And we see an extended package on this match with Roman Reigns from WrestleMania 33. And basically, you just see Undertaker's body break down before our eyes, man. He's there for the first few minutes of the match and is just... He's dropping Roman. He's kind of falling about, and he's not the Mark Calaway, the Undertaker that we've known and loved for all this time, man. It's heartbreaking a little bit.
Yeah, another thing that was heartbreaking was just watching the ending again, with him putting everything, the outfit on and taking it back off. And just the up close shots of those folks in the crowd, man, like adult men and women like booing and crying because they thought the same thing we thought, that this was it. This is the end of the show of him. This is, the cowboy rides away, I guess. But, and thus we birthed this podcast out of it. So, we were correct. That was nice to know at the time. But, and just watching the applause and the adoration backstage from, all his peers was really, really cool to see. And they immediately interview, his wife backstage, and she's like, I think he's, this is it. Like, she's like, it's so naive. Like,
first of many times we'll hear that.
yeah. So,
and we see Vince and Taker embracing in the training room, and Taker's, basically saying, "Was that what you wanted? Is that what you needed?" And Vince is like, "Yeah, man, of course." And Taker's like, "Yep, all right, well, it's good enough for me."
Yeah, he said that's all that matters, and that just, sums it up to me. He's dedicated to this man too, but he's also vulnerable because he's seeing, like you said, seeing this guy who's encapsulates manlyhood, ask Vince if he was happy with it. Like you hear stories like Taker calls the shots backstage and he doesn't want to put this guy over, and I'm like, I don't believe any of that anymore. Like none of it.
Right. Yeah.
I really don't. Like, I mean, maybe a couple things he might have said, no, I don't want to work with this guy because he's sloppy. But like, I don't believe any of that stuff was like out of mean spirited at all. Because he's so like, he's like a big teddy bear. He's like, is it okay, Vince? And Vince's like, yeah. He's like, all right, then we're good. So I don't know. But that sums up that whole episode. That's it.
He probably was like that about Hade Vanson or some other guys.
I mean, yeah, sure. But I mean, as far as you hear, like he was mean and angry and didn't want to put this guy over or squash this guy. I'm like, I don't know, man. I just don't know if I believe that.
I know. I
really don't.
I just don't believe that in general about a lot of stuff in wrestling anymore.
Right.
Like the more I hear stuff, but yeah, who knows?
Makes for a good story.
It makes for a good story. Yeah, there's some truth around it, but it's never as true as old Meltzer might make it out to be, or Bruce Pritchard, or anybody. But
sure, yeah, guys that work with him.
Well, I thought we could kind of give out some awards for some of these episodes as we go along, Travis.
Ooh, Dundies. We call them takies.
Undies. We'll call them undies.
Oh. Yikes.
So, what do you think was your favorite cameo, random appearance, somebody you weren't expecting to see in this episode, whether it was a talking head or just somebody in the background?
Oh, just Teddy. Seeing Teddy backstage. It was great. I just love it. He was wearing a red suit or something, wasn't he, too?
Oh, he's wearing
I don't know, it
classic,
was just-
like jacket down to the ankles,
Yeah.
Teddy Long suit.
Yeah. Yeah. Undie goes to Teddy Long.
I'll give mine to Jim Cornette. I was not expecting
Sure.
to see him in this, and like we said, we may never see him again. So,
Yeah.
what was your funniest moment of this episode?
I think Taker and Angle, just saying like, you might have a future in this business, kid. It was just kind of funny. So I really like that.
I'll give it to Taker and Roman at the hotel backstage.
Sure.
Can't kayfabe for 10 minutes, man.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. And what was your just most eye-opening revelation? Something that just did not see coming, had never heard before out of this episode?
I don't think I'd ever heard that Vince left WrestleMania in the middle of it. I mean, I think I never had proof of that. I think I may have heard that, but I don't know. That was shocking to me that he left, Mania. So that takes the cake for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. That's got to be number one. Just to say something different, I'll say, him getting those cortisone injections before the match, that was just eye-opening to me to see that. I mean, I know guys do that. I know that's not uncommon, but the fact that he showed that, on camera and just kind of peeled back, the doors in the camera room, and during this whole series, he's just letting it all hang out, man. All the warts and all, showing that. It was really, really eye-opening to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was supposed to be just special on or just for his family, and maybe it would have ended up on the WWE Network at some point. Who knows? But yeah, life has a funny way of going on its own path, and the sinking, sour feeling in the Undertaker's stomach about that match not being the one to end his career on leads us to the rest of the series in Chapter 2, which is called The Redemption. So how would you sum up this episode?
Disappointment and redemption. I think redemption is a great story for it, but disappointment also, I would say. You can see the disappointment from that match, both in his performance and just the way that he, was supposed to be the biggest moment of Roman Reigns' career, beating the Undertaker, the second person ever to beat Taker at WrestleMania. It's not as cool as being the first person, but still, it's the second person, but still, only other guy besides Brock Lesnar. That's some pretty good company you're in. It's just a disappointment that wasn't the rocket that got strapped to Roman's back that just burst into the atmosphere, because it just wasn't the match he wanted. So,
I think that hurt Undertaker's feelings and pride more than it being not a great representation for his last match. Like, he talks about how much he let Roman down, and we see it's in this episode where he goes to Roman after WrestleMania 34. Is just like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I hate that it wasn't what we wanted it to be. And Roman's like, dude, it was fine. Like, it was me and you. And they're like, I don't think about that much. But Taker took that to heart more than Roman did.
Yeah, he did. And, this episode starts off with, him in the back, and you can tell how, he's really hard on himself, like you said, and he's frustrated and disappointed. And Big Show makes a very good parallel talking about the match at WrestleMania 33.
I think it was very religious. The jacket, the hat. It symbolizes how Taker worked his entire career. When you leave that ring, everything's in the ring. You gave the fans everything. Whether there's 400 people there, or there's 400,000 people there, you leave everything you have in the ring.
Which is something that I know you and I have definitely noticed and picked up on. Even if it's something like Heidenreich or Luther Reigns, he gives 100% no matter what he's doing. So that was a really good parallel by Big Show. I didn't think was going to make a big poignant statement like that. So,
well, you see it as he walks out of WrestleMania 33, and just this is again, like, I love Undertaker. I'm not trying to be mean, but this is about the worst I've ever seen him look.
Yeah.
He's just in gym shorts. Sure. His gut is hanging out over him. He is limping. He's just in pain walking out of this match. You can tell he's kind of at the bottom. And that's what takes him into surgery. I think it's the same week after WrestleMania, not far after it, where he's going to get his hip replaced. And again, I'm just amazed that he lets the cameras into this, and we're able to see this stuff, this footage of him in the hospital with Michelle.
Yeah, and again, I couldn't watch the literal surgery of it, just grimacing the whole time. I can't watch it, but seeing him in the the pre-op room, and the nurse is like, "You had any surgeries?" And
never gets old though when they say, "Have you had any surgeries in the past?" And it's like, take your pick of which body part has not had surgery.
And no surgeries in your past? Appendix, tonsils? Have you had surgery?
Yeah, I've had a few.
He's laughing.
Well, because it's from head to toe, literally. That's why we laugh.
Yeah, because there's nothing.
I've had over 15.
it was like an episode of The Office. Like it was like awkward and hilarious at the same time, But also, again,
that could be a whole episode. Would just be him talking about every injury he's had. I would be fascinated by him telling like which match this happened from.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, oh, my orbital's broken twice. Like, just going through all of them. She's like, he's trying to straighten his fingers out, but he can't. She's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, but again, that goes to show his dedication. He didn't have to do all that for us, but he did, So it's just crazy, And then, dude, I died when he was talking about how Vince was like, so, time's your surgery? Like, I don't know, 1:30? He's like, oh, you got by 5:30? He's like, no. He's like, oh, I would have been. Like, he just can't help himself, man.
Dude,
like,
the Vince Taker relationship, best part of this whole series, man. It kills me.
I would love to see a reality show with just them. So.
And also laughed out loud at the surgery room playing Taker's theme music as he goes under to the anesthesia, man.
Yeah, he goes to rest in peace to his own music. It's great. Man.
That's trippy right there.
Which that's true. I mean, when I worked in surgery, we played music the entire time. So and we'd ask the person, a song they'd play before they went to bed, and we'd give them anesthesia and they go to sleep. But that was just funny seeing them play Taker's song. So it's pretty funny.
Good rib on him.
Yeah.
In this episode, we really get to see. Get to learn about and hear about the bond between Mark and Michelle McCool. That's a big focal point of this episode. You talked about redemption and how Undertaker talks about how Michelle has been sort of this redeeming point for this latter half of his life, and it's just been a solid rock for him, someone to encourage him, and they share a lot of really cool stuff about them meeting and how they connected, how they built this relationship. It's good stuff.
Yeah, the two people she never wanted to meet were Kane and Taker, and one of them he says is the nicest guy you've ever going to meet in the business, and the other one she married. So I thought it was pretty funny, and her talking about how what won him over was her throwing a spiral. Like that's all it took. He was in love because she could throw a spiral. Yeah. That was great, man. That was great. But then hearing like the real life after like in August of that year, I guess his hip is rehabbing and stuff, and his contract expires. We talk about his contract actually expiring this time. He's going to go back and renegotiate, so we're going to get some more Vince and Taker time. So.
Yeah, and again, you just see this bond between these two guys that have worked together for 30 years now. And if you just think about it, Taker's been the one guy to be there. The one guy who's never left. The one guy who's never retired. The one guy who never went to WCW or ECW or AEW. Never did any at TNA. Yeah, right. But never went to Hollywood.
Ring of Honor.
Never went and did movies or TV shows. He's a wrestler. And he's been there for Vince. Michelle says there's a reason Undertaker named his son Gunnar Vincent. Like, that's not by accident. It's not a coincidence. And we get to see one of the most surprising moments of this whole series where the interviewers ask Vince how he feels about the Undertaker.
Yeah, this whole thing was just crazy to see. He asked him how he feels about him, and I think he says, "What has the Undertaker meant to you personally?" And Vince is like,
What has the Undertaker meant to WWE and to you personally? Can't do that.
just does the old, not the Taker throat slash, but just like the nope, cut it, I can't do this. Like he gets all teary eyed and he says, can't do that, and that's it. Like he can't talk about it, and it's just that blew me away, because
Right.
Again, you hear how much of a tyrant he is, and I'm sure a lot of that is real. I'm sure he's a crazy old man, but seeing the real the real stuff come out here is great, because right before this, Taker literally says, no one other than my dad has been more influential in my entire life, and then we got the old vintage footage of them, and then little Vince Russo cameo backstage via, old clip. So I'm glad Vinny Rue got a little bit of love there, but, and then Vince says, Taker's most loyal employee he's ever had, and I just love it, man. He can't even put into words how much she means to him. So what were your reactions about that?
Oh man, it's just you just have to see it. You have to see Vince get that emotional, because you don't ever see it. It's so rare.
Right.
This is the guy who won't let you sneeze in front of him, and is just this machine that works out. Every single day at 3 in the morning.
He's late to this contract negotiation.
Yes.
He's working out.
He doesn't sleep. He eats steak wraps and protein shakes every day. He's just like not a human being.
Yeah.
But somewhere deep inside, he is. And somewhere deep inside, he loves this guy. I don't know if it's like a son or like a brother or just something unique, this bond that he has with Mark Calaway. He knows how much this guy has sacrificed for him. It's the reason why he left WrestleMania to go be with him. It's the reason why he can't even put into words, because he's not going to show that sort of emotion on camera, but you can tell it's in there.
If you said, tell me how you feel about Shane personally, he probably would have just said something. It's not even his own son. Like, this is another person he didn't give birth to, but like he can't talk about. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know you're not on Twitter, but Vince, he'll always post on certain wrestlers' birthdays, like, happy birthday to the man who started the Attitude Era, who's this icon, Stone Cold Steve Austin, or happy birthday to the woman who started the women's revolution, the greatest women's wrestler of all time, Charlotte Flair. But then whenever it's Shane's birthday, it's like, happy birthday, Shane McMahon. it's like a meme on Twitter, because he really did that. Yeah. That's all he said for Shane's birthday.
See, rest my case. Yeah. Oh, that's great, man.
Then it kind of, like you said, they're going to do the contract negotiations, and Undertaker says basically he didn't think he wanted to get in the ring again. He's just trying to figure out how he could give back to the company, what other sort of ambassador role he could have. And Vince does his Jedi mind trick, and Undertaker signs this new contract, and see him backstage at the Royal Rumble 2008, supporting Michelle McCool, being in that first Women's Royal Rumble. And great foreshadowing as Taker's watching AJ Styles that night. Was that the night he faced
I think it's him
Cena?
and Kevin Owens.
Oh, Kevin Owens. Okay. Cena was the year before.
Year before, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite matches ever. Yeah. Him and Kevin Owens. I think that's the match that on Kevin Owens' documentary, he says that Vince was like, I don't want to talk to you about it. Like, he was so mad about it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't good. I think that's the one. But anyway, he's like,
one guy here I missed, I'd have loved to have worked with, AJ. He gets it. I mean, he really does. Reminds me a lot of Sean.
Which is just...
That's so cool.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Funny. Yeah. Well, again, that's not planned. This is real. So, it's hilarious.
Well, Undertaker is inspired. He's gonna get this ring sent to him that he's gonna start to train in, because, like we said, you can't replicate ring shape. Basically, you gotta just be in the ring, running the ropes, taking bumps, and I love seeing Taker and Michelle and even their daughter setting this ring up, man. Just like he's this old school rookie, man, setting this ring up, putting the pads down and the boards down, and this. He says an old jet ski repair warehouse that they rented out. It basically gave Vince a deadline of the Elimination Chamber in February to decide if he was going to be able to wrestle at WrestleMania that year.
Yeah, Vince had, I guess, told him, I want you to wrestle Cena at Mania if you can, and so he said, give me till Elimination Chamber and I'll tell you. So we see him, really getting his literally getting his legs back under him, and you can see the wheels start turning in his head, and he's really feeling good, and it's really cool to see him running across the ring. He's doesn't look fat and out of shape anymore. He's actually looking pretty good. So, and then he, I think it's February 25th. He records that. He tells Michelle to come over here and record this, video, and he sends it to Vince during the middle of the Elimination Chamber show, which is like as a rib. He says to Vince, but it's that old Toby Keith line that we talked about.
I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. I see you in New Orleans.
He does the whole eye roll and sends it to Vince. So I thought that was great. He's just he's got a sense of humor,
Yes. Send it to Vince in the middle of the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
He says Vince sent him an expletive back. And,
right.
I wish we could have seen some screenshots of that. That would have been awesome.
Yeah,
but,
me too.
We see more of Undertaker training. He's got all these classic pay-per-view posters behind him, and got some Bible verses as well. He's got Psalm 144:1 back behind him, and he doesn't really talk about his faith too much in this, but we've seen that kind of come out in recent years and seen that play a part in this. And then we get. I'll go ahead.
If you pay attention to the shirts he wears and stuff, you can see he's just not avidly talking about it. But yeah, go ahead and say what you're about to say. I can't wait.
A lot of military and other political shirts, but we go ahead and say the cameo of this episode is Primo coming in there to get the Undertaker ready for WrestleMania. I was not expecting that.
No, I was like, that's got to be a rib. Well, maybe that's Vince's rib for him for sending that text in the middle of the show. He's like, I'll get you Primo. But man, are they boys or something, you think? Because it looked like they were getting along just fine. Like, I don't know, man. But
it's like
it was weird. But
The Rock had Curtis Axel and Kurt Hawkins. They came up and trained with him for 2012 when he was making his comeback, or that was 2011, 2012. Yeah.
Maybe that's what Vince is like. Grab the lowest ground totem pole, send him to take.
I'm not doing anything, man.
Primo.
And I believe he had just been released when this show came on the network. But
it says former, former WWE superstar Primo. It's kind of sad.
But Taker's feeling good. He says he feels like he's in the best shape he's been in since WrestleMania 25 or 26, which is saying something, man. Best shape in about 8 or 9 years, and he's got something to prove at WrestleMania 34 with Cena. He wants to not just have a good match, not just redeem himself, but he wants to go out there and steal the show, which is awesome at this age that he even cares, because he could just go out there and do his entrance, chokeslam, tombstone pose, Shakespeare pose in the middle of the ring, and nobody would care. We would love it.
Nope.
But he doesn't want to do that.
Exactly. He leaves it all in the ring, and he even says the last 27 years don't matter, and last year doesn't even matter. So he wants to go out there. This is a big marquee match, him and Cena. And it's the two biggest names they had at that point, So it's great to see. And he says again, this might be the last time I'll make the walk down the aisle. Then I might can call it quits, which again, just like a running gag at this point.
It really is. It's the running joke of the show.
Yeah. But I thought it was neat that they kayfabed his arrival at the arena. It's like, this is the venue you were at, and we'll talk about this later. But they went to some great lengths to kayfabe him. He's got the little looks like a little cart from like Wacky Racers. Basically, it's a golf cart with like black cloaks around it, like so they can't see who's on it. So.
Yeah, I was able to go. Won tickets a few weeks before it. Wish you had been able to go. Ended up going with my brother-in-law instead, and had a great time. And we'll of course talk about it. And it was, like we said, it was right in the middle of us doing this podcast, and it was his first match back. So there was, and it was an interesting build because they never advertised the match, and it's in the program. It's like a question mark over the match on there, which I think is a nice little touch too. And Cena's in the crowd at the beginning of it, pretending like he doesn't know if he's going to wrestle on this night. And I wish they would have gone into that a little bit more. I wish they would have talked about a little bit more why they made that decision to book the build up in this interesting way. And obviously, the big deal with this is that this match is only going to go about 5 minutes. It's a sprint of a match, and Taker looks great in it, but he's disappointed by how short it is, and they never really go into why.
No, they don't explicitly, and the only thing I could think of is that, honestly, I bet it was Cena saying, let's just let him go out there and bury me. Like, just let's let him show them that Taker's back, because Vince knows how much he hated the year before his match, against Roman, and disappointed he was. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a combination of, Vince and Cena just saying, no, let's give him his confidence back. Let's get the character, the confidence back, the fans, the confidence in this character. He's going to come out there and squash the biggest name we have, in 5 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised. That's just me guessing, but they never really go. But yeah, he's really hard on himself. No one else seems to care backstage. Like, dude, it was great. Like, in fact, Shane's like, it was awesome. Like, he's like, yeah, it was only 5 minutes. So Shane's like, it doesn't matter. It was awesome. Like, he's his own worst critic, man. He really is. So,
which we all are. I mean, that's the thing. That's how every human being is. We are all our own worst critics, and that's again what makes this show so special is seeing that in a guy like the Undertaker. Like, how could the Undertaker actually think that? Right. But he does, man. So it's so relatable. And that's sort of the cliffhanger of episode 3, and that's or episode 2, leading into episode 3, chapter 3, end of an era, which is going to cover basically the rest of 2018, which is sort of the Undertaker's world tour year as he goes to Saudi Arabia and Australia, Madison Square Garden, back over to Saudi Arabia, a crazy year that has some high notes and some ends with some very, very low notes.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Do we want to do the undies for episode 2 real quick?
Yes.
Chapter 2.
So, best cameo of this episode.
Oh, shoot. What did I say earlier? Oh, Primo. Yeah.
It's got to be Primo.
You said it.
No
Primo.
question.
Yeah,
it's got to be Primo.
Yeah.
Funniest moment of this episode.
Maybe her talking about how what won him over was him throwing the spiral. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was good. I enjoyed that. I'll say the nurse asking Undertaker, "Have you had any surgeries in the past?"
Yeah. Yeah, either one of those.
Biggest revelation for you in this episode?
Their relationship, just him and Vince. Just yeah. Vince has a soul. For once, you can probably see it. Maybe that's it. Vince is part man.
Very special moment in there.
Yeah.
I'll say just the fact that Undertaker didn't know till Elimination Chamber. He didn't know till he was like working out in the ring last night and feeling good in that training area if he was actually going to go to WrestleMania that year, because we'd seen him at the Raw 25th anniversary earlier in 2018. And we'll get to that towards the end of the show. It's on one of the bonus scenes on YouTube, but he does actually talk about that. But I had kind of wondered why they never touched on that in this episode, but it is on one of the bonus scenes. So we'll talk about that towards the end. But there we go. Episode 2, on to episode 3, end of an era, like we said. And again, Undertaker a little bit disappointed with his WrestleMania match for the second year in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he says, I could have walked away if I'd been satisfied, but if it was a more significant match. But, I I don't know. I don't know if
I
I
don't
believe him,
believe
though.
that for a second, man. Because he's not. There's no way he's walking away from that Saudi Arabia money, dude. And
Exactly.
they probably already signed a contract for that, or he probably already knew that was coming up at this point.
It was
I
like
figured.
3 weeks later, I think. If I'm not mistaken, it was sometime in April.
I don't know if
But I
I
thought
buy
it was
that.
funny at the beginning. Yeah, I know. When his daughter is a big fan of Cena, so she's like, I can't believe Daddy won, and he talks about how like most of my matches that I lose, she's awake for, but the ones I win, she's asleep for. So, and she kind of gives a thumbs up and a thumbs down because thumbs up, Daddy won, thumbs down because he beat Cena. So that was kind of funny right off the get go.
I did enjoy that, and his daughter is adorable and plays has a lot of fun, cute moments in this series. They don't.
Yeah, and he's got older kids too.
Right. Yeah.
They don't really. I think one of them's on the trampoline in the earlier episode, and they don't really talk about him. But yeah, obviously Michelle said that Gunnar Vincent. So I don't know if she has other kids or not though. Before
I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
But he's got several. But yeah, that little one she's only 6 or 7 now. She's really cute. So
yeah. We don't spend a lot of time on the first Saudi Arabia match, Greatest Royal Rumble casket match with Rusev, or they don't even talk about it getting switched to Chris Jericho for a week or two and then switch back to Rusev. And then, I mean, it's funny. This is the year after he was supposed to retire, but actually it's the year he wrestles the most in the past 6 or 7 years. So he goes on to Madison Square Garden and has this 6-man tag match with Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns against Kevin Owens, Baron Corbin, and Elias. And in a really cool moment, the Madison Square Garden is lit up in purple lighting on the outside, which is just a huge honor, especially for a guy who understands that and respects that like Taker does. I'm sure that, I mean, you can tell they obviously recorded this match. I hope they show it on the network or on a DVD someday.
Yeah, me too. And MSG is going to come into play later on too. But he holds that place in such high regard, and he's got to wrestle there a lot. So he talks about. I think he's going to go back there a time or two. We're going to touch on it in a minute, but he talks about this could be my last time here. So again, it's just kind of a recurring thing with all of these. But dude, what better way for him to go in Madison Square Garden than to be in a tag team match? I just love that.
That's right, player.
I love that.
Teddy Long must have booked it for this night. And it's really cool to see Kevin Owens get to take the tombstone. I'm sure he appreciated that. And really loved doing that as well. So then the next thing up is the Super Showdown in Australia against Triple H, which is for the very last time ever these two guys will ever be in the ring together here. And that leads to
heard that before.
a lot of talk from Hunter and Taker about their relationship together and how important their bond is.
Yeah, it's cool because, Triple H talks about how, Taker was the one that told him, when he started for real dating Stephanie, like, who cares what anybody thinks? Like, you just go do you,
When Steph and I got together and were starting to have a relationship, the guy that I talked to about it was Taker. He was one of the most supportive guys of it. He was like, screw everybody else and their opinions of you. You know what you bring to the table, and so do I. If anybody else doesn't like it, that's their problem. He was in our wedding. At a certain point in time, you found yourselves being two of the things that were just still always there. If you walked in the locker room, the one guy that could relate to everything that you had been through for the last 20, 25 years or whatever was Taker.
So I thought it was pretty cool that, because I'm sure that Taker's opinion meant a lot to him at that point, So, yeah. And then also Triple H made a fantastic point. He's full of great stuff in this series, actually. And he makes a great point about, all of a sudden you look around and we're kind of the last two guys in the locker room that would understand a lot of the things that we're going through physically, but also just we've been through the same times together in the business, So, there really wasn't, many other people at that point that were there, doing that. So I thought it was pretty cool. But
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth. And they talk about their history of matches, the WrestleMania 25 through 28 storyline with Shawn Michaels as well. And Undertaker flat out says it. We've heard him say it on some other podcasts and stuff, but this is his favorite storyline, his favorite series of matches is that tetralogy that we went in depth in with St. Ridley on the show, and we were just getting started covering those. We just covered WrestleMania 25, and I'm very excited to walk through all those matches together. So they kind of go throughout those whole storylines and ending with talking about that very special moment they share at the top of the stage at WrestleMania 28, which Undertaker says was a spontaneous thing.
Yeah, and I'd heard that in interviews with Shawn before, and Triple H, but hearing it from Taker, really just made me solidify that really was not planned, And like I said, we'll cover all those matches in depth later on. So, but it was the meat of this episode kind of covers all that. But really cool that Triple H had the picture frame too. You see, I think it's got Shawn's ref shirt. I think some of Taker's, like one of Taker's gloves or something, and Triple H's wrist tape, and they're all signed, all of them, and had a picture of that, and all three of them have them hanging up in their house, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, pretty awesome. And Taker says that was our last big shot doing what we get to do with each other until 2018. We go to Australia and Saudi Arabia together. So yeah.
We see some great backstage footage at the Australia show of Undertaker playing cards with Larry Heck, his trainer, and another guy Undertaker's been very close to throughout the years. I don't know how long he's been there, but I guess he's been there for a while for Undertaker to have this sort of bond with him. And they talk about playing cards a lot. Hilarious moment when they're doing rehearsals out in the arena, I guess, and Undertaker's gong hits right in the middle of them playing cards, and Taker's like, "Oh, that's bad luck for you, brother."
I give Larry a lot of crap.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, that's bad news right there for you, brother.
Catch in.
About time I'm about to make a comeback.
Come on.
We have a lot of downtime, especially when you're on the road all the time. We're spending a lot of time with Larry playing gin. We play so much cards that it's just kind of been people come in to just watch us play cards, and there's certain guys that would come into the room and I'd have to make them leave the room because they were bad luck. Hornswoggle, Big Show, Chimmel.
Hornswoggle was enemy of the state number one, and then Big Show and Tony Chimmel are the other two. He said, you got to kick out of the room.
They got that stink on him.
Bad luck.
So Taker and Triple H, they have a decent match at Super Showdown. Sounds like Undertaker thinks it's better than most people thought it was, but it was okay. We'll talk about it when we get there.
And one cool thing we find out later, he says that they called it in the ring. Like he said they didn't talk about it, which is cool. Which they have the trust from Vince and the producers to be able to do that too. I think that's pretty cool. So.
And that leads into the Crown Jewel match, which this all sets up. Triple H and Shawn Michaels, DX, reuniting. Shawn Michaels returning out of retirement for the first time in almost 10 years here at this point to go against the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane. And we see the unedited promo of Undertaker and Kane telling Triple H and Shawn Michaels they got 3 words for them, which was, oh my goodness. First time I saw that, I was on the floor. I was not expecting that.
That was hilarious. And just watching Kane doing Suck It was hilarious too. So yeah, it was funny, man. And during this time, Taker's talking about, there's no weak link in this thing, and we're just going to be four friends going out there and doing what we do. And we see some throwback to the Brothers of Destruction tagging together and stuff, and just hit Taker's tag history kind of. And you see Kurgan backstage, you see the DOA, which is funny, and then you see O'Hare and Palumbo, which I just thought were pretty cool cameos there. Yeah, Chucky P, baby, and then Sean O'Hare, which could have done so much more. But maybe my favorite assessment of this Saudi match, Triple H, he just knocks a homer here. He's like, we thought about this Saudi match. He's like, it'll all be great, no problem, easy.
It's with Kane and Taker. Dude, it's a night off, right? You'll come in there, we'll do a couple crotch jobs, we'll throw some glow sticks out, a couple super kicks, drop an elbow. It'll all be great, no problems, right? Easy. Undertaker, doing the once in a while thing. Shawn hasn't wrestled in however many years. Kane's the mayor. It's like a bad comedy movie. It really is.
I just thought it was like the most perfect assessment because it is a train wreck. It's awful.
It is. They talked for a minute about how surprised they were that Shawn was going to come back for this, which, again, money talks, just like it did for Undertaker coming for these Saudi shows. But, man, it is crazy to hear how honest these guys are in their assessment about this match. You just don't see that on WWE programming to this level, which they have to be. Man, it was a disaster. It was an embarrassment. And Triple H gets hurt early on, and that definitely affects it. That definitely throws it off. And Shawn Michaels hadn't worked in 10 years, so that's a huge part of it. Kane's mask and his wig fall off, for crying out loud. You can't recover from that.
Yeah, he goes, at one point I looked up, it looked like Kane's head fell off. Dude, Triple H is killing me. It was great. And then Shawn goes, yeah, it totally blew. Just missed it by that much.
Oh,
backstage.
man. That killed me.
Excellent.
And Undertaker, he's honest about it too. He says which they don't really get into this yet. I didn't really know what he was talking about. But he says he wasn't there and Shawn wasn't there either. They both had personal drama going on. So I don't quite know what all he's talking about there. He doesn't quite get into that. But he says if this match worked out, that could have been the one. That could have been the one he walked away on. But of course it wasn't. And JR has a great line here, just in the most JR way possible, saying,
Sand is pouring through the hourglass at a pretty rapid rate. It's called Father Time. Father Time don't do any jobs. Father Time doesn't lose any matches.
Oh, that's the most JR assessment
He's right.
I've ever heard. Man, Father Time's going to get to you.
He is, man. And in the same vein, Batista, again, he loves Taker, man. We talked about when we covered their whole series, that whole year, Batista talking about how much Taker did for him. And he has a really sobering view that says, he's just going to keep going out there and looking for the end, and he's going to keep on doing it. He's like, doesn't owe anything to anyone else. He doesn't owe anything to anyone. Like, he can stop, but he can't stop. So it just really, I don't know, man. You just see that his friend, he wishes he would just be okay with the career he's had.
They use the phrase a lot. A lot of different people do, chasing the dragon. That's a theme they keep coming back to for Undertaker, and how he keeps going after it, man. He can't get enough. He's gotta have it be perfect, and even when it is good, he's like, oh, maybe I could have another good one after that. It's bad. Oh, I gotta go redeem it. So it's a never-ending vicious cycle in here. And that basically tells the story of episode 3. So for your Undie awards for this one, what would you give the best cameo appearance on this episode?
Best cameo, I say I gotta go with just Palumbo and O'Hare, man. I love it. Just that's great. It's great.
I'll go with Trainer Larry playing cards with Undertaker. That was a fun little backstage moment. Wasn't expecting to see on there. Funniest moment on this episode.
Oh man, this episode was hilarious to me. I don't know, man. Either Triple H just summing up that match when he says, and Kane's the mayor. The way he delivered that line just killed me, man.
Right.
That might be my favorite. That or the missed it by that much, where Shawn's arms are like 6 feet apart, like that. Either one of those. Oh,
it's got to be Taker and Kane saying, "Go yourselves." Triple H and Shawn Michaels.
I forgot about that.
That's my number one. And biggest revelation out of this episode.
I think that there was something personally going on, like I don't know what it was. He doesn't get into it. It doesn't matter. But it doesn't say it's between him and Michelle. It says there's extra like family stuff, not between him. I don't know if it was ex-wives or kids or family. Well, she's got a big family too, so who knows? But just maybe hearing that's kind of why he was off that night. It's kind of the biggest revelation for me.
I'll say Hornswoggle being bad luck for playing cards. No, not really. I'll say maybe that. I'll say that moment at WrestleMania 28 was just not planned. That that was just kind of spontaneous. It was those guys really taking it in and just feeling it in the moment out there. I think that's really cool and just makes that moment even more special. I thought it was a cool moment always, but I kind of had always assumed that was just supposed to happen. But that's really neat, really special.
Yep, pretty cool. And then they kind of end the episode kind of foreshadowing into Taker talking about needing to prioritize his family life and thinking about what life looks like past wrestling, which is going to take us to Chapter 4, which is called The Battle Within.
All right, folks, slight change of plans here. We're not going to go into Episode 4 just yet. We're actually going to save that for next week's edition of the podcast. You know, we went really, really long, a lot longer than we ever expected to, discussing these 5 episodes. So for that reason, we want to give them the proper time to breathe, and we don't want to overwhelm you guys with stuff. And we, in full disclosure, also had a little bit of a scheduling conflict as well. So for that reason, we are going to expand this into a 2-part episode. So we're going to cut things off here after episode 3 of The Last Ride, and we will cover the final 2 episodes of The Last Ride, including our in-depth emotional thoughts about The Undertaker saying goodbye, riding off into the sunset, hanging up his 6-shooter and his cowboy boots, and retiring. We'll talk about if we think we'll ever actually see him back in the ring again or not, if we believe in all this, how it made us feel, all that stuff, and a full in-depth breakdown of those final 2 episodes next week on the podcast. We'll come back in 2 weeks to our regularly scheduled program and continue our journey rolling onto this last ride, going through Undertaker's matches on pay-per-view, and we'll hit Bragging Rights 2009, a fatal 4-way match with Undertaker, Batista, CM Punk, and Rey Mysterio, so it'll be fun to dig into that in 2 weeks. Until then, you guys can always follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Talking Taker. We are available on every podcasting service you can think of: Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio. Wherever you want to listen to us, you can find us out there. If you really want to help support the show, there's a few things you can do. Number 1, you can leave a rating or leave a review on your favorite podcasting service and help spread the word. Share our podcast, retweet it, like it, spread it to anyone you know who likes wrestling, especially now that the buzz is all about The Undertaker right now. If people you know are talking about the Last Ride series, hit them up and let them know that there's an entire podcast, 150 episodes and counting, devoted to The Undertaker's career. We would really appreciate it. If you want to support us monetarily, you can go to tpublic.com and pick up a Talking Taker t-shirt or even a Talking Taker mask to wear. Wear your masks out there, people. Stop the spread and do it by spreading the word about your favorite podcast instead. And of course, you can go to Stitcher.com/premium and enter in the code TALKINGTAKER, all one word, and you get a free month of ad-free podcast listening, bonus podcasts for all of the top podcasts out there. Thousands and thousands and thousands upon hours of podcast listening. Code TALKINGTAKER for a free month of Stitcher Premium. But yeah, until then, make sure you've watched all the episodes of The Last Ride. Let us know what you thought about this one. Let us know if we missed anything. And until then, take her easy.
All right, Cadence, to your line. In 5, 4, 3.
Triple H and Shawn Michaels, you had 3 words for us. Are you ready? Well, we have 3 words for you.